Hello, it's Barry from RichPix again. I wanted to talk a bit about dynamic range and some of the problems that you get when we're taking photographs of industrial plant for asset inspection or just basically to show people what we've got. We can take great photographs, so this area, everything's in focus because that green masked area shows me the pixels are in focus. But the problem I've got here is I've got dark shadow areas which are hiding probably important detail, maybe a crack, it might be a label. And as soon as I turn the lights on to get illumination, then I also get this other problem as well, where I'm starting to get too much detail or swamp detail, what we call clip detail. Now these red areas you can see are actually, when I turn the lights on, these are areas which are overexposed. And just to show you how this impacts, I'm just zooming in and let's go and have a look at this bit of pipe work and zoom in a bit. There you go. And the red areas are bits where there are no data. Now, for a photograph, just using imagery, that might not be significant, but if I'm doing it for taking the photographs for photogrammetry or reality capture, then all the red areas are areas where there is no data. So my mesh model is going to be really rubbish. However, sometimes we don't need to create a mesh model. We just want the photographs. And one of the great things we can do is actually turn the lights on. If we capture in RAW and DNG, we can post-process the image and we can do an awful lot of interesting things. I'm just zoomed in here so we can have a look at the level of detail we're getting. Now this detail is probably about 10-15 feet above us, but we can zoom in and see pretty well everything that we need to do. Now this is actually on a website, or it could be on a website, so anybody can remotely inspect things. And so we get a much deeper, clearer image that anyone can use in any lighting condition. And I call this the RichPix deep scan. So you can, with your 360 cameras, get perfectly acceptable things to tell you that there is a pipe there. But what it won't do is allow you to zoom in into the rooms, into the roof spaces to look at particular detail. Now, here's something that caught my eye. So someone's written something up here in the roof space. Now I can zoom in on this, and anybody can, and figure out what it is they're writing. We can change the lighting, we can zoom in a bit more and see if we can read it, see what it says. But this could be anything. And if you're in a roof space, like say in an aircraft, an airport terminal or a railway station or a big plant room, sometimes this can mean the difference between you having to hire in a cherry picker or get scaffolding or working at heights, because the safest way to work at heights is not to work at heights. So just using this technique, which I call deep scan, we can actually get a forensic view of the thing. Now that's the light as it was, and let's turn the lights on again. It's not hard to do. Anyone can do this, and this is what we teach. And also provide a service to do that. So just on the right, I'm just scrolling through some examples here of photographs, and you see the varying lighting that we get, some really dark areas, but by turning it on, okay, so I've actually tweaked this one, so that is what it looked like straight out of camera, and this is what it'll look like, so let's zoom in a bit, but this is what it looks like when I've turned the lights on, so to speak, in post-processing. I think you'll agree, it makes life a lot simpler, and saves a trip, allows you to collaborate, all sorts of really big benefits from having this. Now, if I was doing an asset inspection, I may not need this for every part of the plant, just every part of the building. A standard 360 camera is going to be perfectly fine for an awful lot of it. But when I get into the dark areas, some areas I need to get the big guns out. Now, again, we've got this same problem with overexposure as soon as we turn the lights on, which is a bit ironic. But that's what we call RichPix deep scan. Now, what is that different from other things? Well, here is an example of using a Matterport camera. And Matterport, brilliant cameras, love them, they're great for different things. But in this particular space, I want to see some detail in this. Now, for ground level where it's well lit, not a problem, that's great. However, I also want to see stuff in the ceiling and have a look at the detail here. And you can see we're losing an awful lot. Has its benefits, of course, but this is the version with deep scan, and this is what we can do. We basically post-process this and turn the lights on. Now this is actually an 11K 360 pano, but that 11K allows us to zoom in. This is only zooming in about 200-300 times, but I think you'll agree it gives you much better clarity to inspect what's there. And this is, well, some of those details are 40-50 meters away from us. So what we get is we get a balanced view with everything lit, artificially, of course. There's no extra lighting in this. This is just stuff we do in the camera. Let's zoom in a bit more so you can see some idea of the detail that we've got. Now, if I was using a Matterport or an X5 or any standard 360 camera, I just would not be able to capture this at all. But by doing some very simple techniques and post-processing and just outputting these in a slightly different way, we can get a massive improvement in what's there. Now, obviously, this has big implications if I want to do remote inspection, because I don't have to worry too much now about getting cherry pickers or scaffolding or all sorts of things. Obviously, if I need to do an arm's length inspection, I'm still going to have to get up there. But with this technology, I mean, that's probably about 30 to 40 meters away. We can see in incredible detail exactly what we're dealing with. So for heritage or building surveys and stuff like that, it's perfectly fine. But let's go back to another typical thing where, you might be using 360 walk around with a 360 camera on your hat or whatever you might be doing. But the problem that you've got is after a meter or two, you can't really read anything. You can see that there's a pipe, you can see that there, and in this particular case I've relit this, but if I was using the standard 360 camera, it would be very, very dark. But you can see just by doing some simple things on site, we can capture in incredible detail. Now, as I say, we don't need this for all asset jobs. If I'm looking at a school or a university or a hospital, then I probably only need to be able to see it's a chair or it's a plug socket. But if I'm working in plant rooms, the lighting and the things that are put a bit too far away, I really want to be able to read that serial number on that pump. Now this is again an 11K image, and don't worry about too much about the size, because what happens really is when you're viewing this on the web, it's tiled, so you zoom in, much like Google Earth. It has no benefit, it has no, you don't have to worry about the bandwidth for downloading these things. But what I can do is zoom in and read the labels on serial numbers, all sorts of different things, which I would not be able to do if I was using a conventional 360 camera. If you'd like to know more about our services and training, then please drop me a line at barry@therichpixel.com. Look forward to seeing you soon.